Mets fans, what if I told you that there is a star slugger that has just been posted by his club in the MPB, not named Munetaka Murakami, that's a greater fit than Murakami for this Mets team currently, and is far more likely and realistic to actually land with the Mets than being a guaranteed lock to say land with the LA Dodgers? Let me present to you, yes, the star slugger from Japan, that being Mr. Kazuma Okamoto, as we're going to break down everything that you need to know about Kazuma and his game, and ultimately why Mets fans should be in love with the idea of potentially landing this young man for the 2026 season and beyond. How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, breaking down all the latest news and rumblings of Mets land, and as we always do, I will make sure that you guys are well aware of every single player under the sun the Mets could find themselves landing this offseason, and for more reasons than one, they are fully anticipated and expected to be in the market here for this coveted free agent from Japan. So we're going to break down where initially this reporting stems from to make it known that he is in fact going to be posted, as well as what you guys need to know about Kazuma, who not only plays first base, third base, and can play the corner outfield, and unlike Murakami, he actually knows what he's doing defensively. He is a stud defensively, and he's a plus bat as well. I'm excited to break him down if you guys couldn't tell, so all I ask is that you hit that like and subscribe on your way, and let me know your initial reactions, thoughts, and analysis in the comments down below to what we're going to break down in Okamoto today and what you guys need to know about him, and if you're for or against him landing with the Mets for the 2026 season and beyond. And as always, everybody, shout out to our amazing sponsors that make every single show here happen, that being at SeatGeek, that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Utilize my promo code WARDY10, that is WARDY10, link down below, because you're going to get 10% off your next ticket purchase, whether it's for NFL season, NBA season, as my Knicks are debuting tonight at the Garden against those Cavs, even though everybody and their mother's injured, sadly. But whatever you need in the ticketing space, our friends at SeatGeek have you covered, as well as head over to mantasleep.com and utilize my promo code WARDY, W-R-D-Y, because you're going to get 10% off the best sleep masks in the game today. Shout out to them both. Shout out to you guys. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and break down what you guys need to know here on the coveted veteran coming over from Japan. And I want to amplify veteran here because unlike Munetaka Murakami, who's around 25, 26 years of age, we have more of a veteran here in Kazuma because he is at the young age right now of 29. And in case you guys did not see, this was officially reported by his team there in the Giants out of Japan in the MPB, but has been reaffirmed by many other outlets, including SNY, that you guys see here. Kazuma Okamoto will be posted by the Giants, and the 29-year-old has 247 career home runs in the MPB since 2018, and he's primarily played first base and third base, and that is all important. And what today's video is going to be about is not only letting you guys know everything you need to know on Kazuma, but how contrasting of a player he is to a degree from Murakami. Because I don't want fans to come in here and think that, oh, it's another Japanese star being posted, that they're the exact same thing, because him and Murakami couldn't be more different. The only commonality that they have between each other is that they are the two best sluggers coming out of Japan that are both going to hit Major League Baseball for 2026 and beyond. That is the one thing that they have in unison. Otherwise, they are very different players, and for good reason. And to get into more here on what you guys need to know on Kazuma, let's just start with a stat line that you guys can go ahead and see down below. So far this season for the veteran infielder, and yes, he can play the corner outfields, but he's expected to be a first base, third base type at the major league level, and for good reason. In 69 games thus far this year, he already has 15 home runs, 49 RBIs, a 327 average, a 416 on base, a roughly 600 slug, over 100% above league average as a batter there in the MPB with a 210 WRC plus per Fangraphs. And his career numbers speak for itself: 248 home runs, 717 RBIs, and just over 1,000 career games, a 277 batting average, a 361 on base, and a 521 slug. This is a man who, mind you, won gold with Munetaka Murakami, Shohei Ohtani, Roki Sasaki, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto in the 2023 World Baseball Classic against Team USA, and even actually had a home run against Kyle Freeland, the southpaw from Colorado, who we know is a bum, but still gave up a meatball upstairs that was absolutely blasted out of the ballpark by Okamoto, who finished third, only trailing Ohtani and one other batter there for Team Japan and their collective OPS that they had from that WBC. He had an OPS of just under 1,300, and that's quite the contrary from Munetaka Murakami, who, guys, if you watch the WBC, you know it very well. He looked like he was scared of his own shadow. Murakami looked like far from the giant that was coming off of a 50 home run season that previous year there for the MPB. He looked like he got a big reality check facing not only Major League-wide pitching at the WBC level, but just quality pitching beyond what he has seen there in the MPB of Japan. Okamoto's a completely different discussion. He looked calm, cool, and comfortable the entire time. And as you guys will continue to see from these highlights here beside me, there is a lot to love about him. And again, for a great reason. But let's start off by rattling off all of his accomplishments and ultimately how he has separated himself from Murakami. Because unlike Murakami, who's nothing short of a defensive liability, meaning that Munetaka is going to profile best at the DH position at the major league level. That is not the case here with Okamoto, who's being deemed as a plus defender, a multi-time gold glove for them and the MPB, and is someone who's been brilliant not only from his 2021 and 2022 seasons playing first base and third base, but as, again, someone who, if you need to throw in the corner outfield, you can do it, and he will handle it at a very comfortable rate. This is a man who can handle defense night and day from at times what we're even seeing with Alonso at first base, Beatty at third base, and this is what completely changes the dynamic for trying to approach and land someone like him, because unlike Murakami, who would be pretty much your DH through and through for the Mets, and I see a lot of upside there, I'm not against it. Murakami has a higher ceiling than Okamoto, but who has the greater floor? It is without a question Kazuma here, and here's why. Kazuma is not a defensive liability. He's a plus defender. He's so good defensively that he could put the Mets in a position where they wouldn't necessarily need to sign him as, say, an Alonso replacement at first base. They can go ahead and do that for the guy who's had 30-plus home runs every single season, basically, from 2018 up until this point, as he's on pace for another 30-plus home run year. But it's also the fact that you can have him comfortably handle third base as your everyday third baseman, which would make someone like Brett Beatty far more feasible to be dealt and, say, a blockbuster trade for a Tarek Skubal, a Hunter Green, a Freddie Peralta, a Edward Cabrera, a Sandy Alcantara to a lesser degree, even though I don't love the idea of trading Beatty to the Marlins to see him thrive there, as well, you don't necessarily know what we're getting in the pitching in return because they still have to adjust to the Mets, among other things. So Beatty, I do not want to see traded. I'm trying to make that clear. All I'm saying is the Mets are more than willing to deviate away from their position player core group this offseason because of what went wrong this past year. And even if it means parting ways with some guys that we like for the betterment of adding an area of need, which is most certainly this rotation, goes without saying, along with the bullpen. And if you can find a filler of a higher offensive and defensive option right now at a very strong rate of what you'd have to give up financially, how would you not at least consider that if you're David Stearns of the New York Mets here? And mind you, David Stearns went over to the MPB back around mid-August this year to watch Murakami, Okamoto, among others there, as he was heavily scouting them. Murakami hit a walk-off blast in attendance for David Stearns there, so that was awesome. Okamoto, I'm not sure exactly what he did, if anything, if Stearns got a chance to catch his game, but let's also talk about a couple other very important factors that separate him from Munetaka Murakami. And it's not just the defense, because we all know that. Another key aspect is how to handle pitching, okay? There's a great expectation that Munetaka Murakami, as much as I would love him as the Mets' everyday DH, I really think he could be one of the better sluggers in Major League Baseball as soon as next year once he gets adjusted. But I also expect Murakami to strike out at a rate of 30 to 35%. The guy swings and misses like crazy, and he can't hit a fastball to save his life a lot of the times. Quite the contrary here with Okamoto, who, when we look at velocity in particular of 93 plus miles per hour or more, he is averaging 298, pretty much a 300 career batting average that we have seen there in the MPB, including 20 home runs on fastballs of 93 miles per hour or faster. That is big news because unlike Munetaka Murakami, who absolutely eats and is a feast, he's feasting as that big bopper on breaking balls, off speed pitches. When it comes to meatballs, of course, he's going to eat them up, but he swings and misses at a completely different rate than Okamoto. Okamoto is not striking out half the time, basically, that Murakami is, just to show you guys how different they are. There's 10 times more plate discipline with Okamoto. He's been in the MPB the past 11 years, since he was 18, mind you, as a top draft pick or so, and I could be wrong the 18 age, but the point is, he's been around since literally he was drafted in the first round by the Giants. And this is also the first time ever that the Giants of the Nippon Pro Baseball League in Japan are posting a position player. To give you guys a greater look as to how big of a deal this is, they've never done this. So to actually allow a veteran who's been there the past decade, who's been a constant performer, mind you, because we look year by year in his individual offensive player production, this guy has been a beast. Go back to his age 22 season 2018, 33 home runs, 100 RBIs, and a plus defender while batting .309 with a .394 on base and a .541 slug. 47% above league average as a batter that year. 2019, as a 23-year-old, 31 home runs, 94 RBIs. 2020, shortened season. Actually not. They still played 118 games, right? 31 home runs, 97 RBIs. 2021, his age 25 season, 39 home runs, 113 RBIs. 2022, his age 26 season, 30 home runs, 82 RBIs. 2023 season, his age 27 year, 41 home runs, 93 RBIs. Last season, at the age of 28, 27 home runs, 83 RBIs. Now 15 home runs in just 69 games, having him on pace yet again for another 30-plus home run year, 49 RBIs. You love to see it, and he's slashing ridiculously above how he usually bats. He's usually around a 270, 280 hitter, but he's batting well above his weight right now at 327 that we're seeing actively. So, combine the consistency that you have had in Okamoto and both his offense and his defense, paired with how long he's been in the MPB, this is what's going to set him up for great success right away at the major league level. Whereas Munetaka Murakami, even if he say signs with the LA Dodgers and becomes somehow, some way more their DH type, I don't really see how that would work with Ohtani, but let's say, for argument's sake, they do something along those lines. Could I see him thriving in that lineup with the Dodgers, getting how deep it is? Absolutely. And this is not at all a video to shame or slight Munetaka Murakami and what he's been able to do, which is why he's the most heralded and coveted free agent coming from MPB this year. But we should not at all confuse the two in himself and Okamoto, because they bring such different elements to their game that could benefit the Mets. If I'm being completely honest, as much as I like Murakami, as much as I would love Murakami for the Mets to sign him, and I do hope it still happens, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it if it doesn't, because one, I'm not expecting it right now, and two, Okamoto can come at a far more realistic opportunity and rate for the Mets than, say, Murakami. And here's why. Right now, the LA Dodgers have Max Muncy to figure out what they're going to do with him this offseason. If the Dodgers decide to not run it back with Muncy, then there is a little bit of an area need for them potentially at third base. For Okamoto, if they have enough interest, could be feasible. You look at the New York Yankees and Paul Goldschmidt more than likely not returning. Should that not be the case, Okamoto can comfortably slot in as their first base option, knowing that they have Ryan McMahon, who's going to handle more a third that they traded from the Rockies this past year's trade deadline. For the Mets, if you add Okamoto as an Alonso replacement, you're still going to be getting plus power and defense in that position. And we know how much David Stearns is trying to pride himself on building a team that's defensively sound. Okamoto is exactly the kind of player you target, because he fits not only the short and long-term bill as someone who brings a plus bat, but brings a plus defense as well. But let's say you don't love the idea of parting ways with Alonso this offseason, understandably so, and you plan to bring Alonso back. Okay, Okamoto can be utilized as your third base option, making Beatty feasible if you do not say transition him to more of a second base option, right? Jeff McNeil, goes without saying, is a massive trade chip for the Mets to utilize this offseason. Not that he himself will garner a great return, but rather he's not getting younger. He's entering his age 34 season, and the Mets would probably like more flexibility with their infield outfield options than having a logjam of Jeff McNeil blocking the Jet Williams and what others of the world. So when you take that into account and understand that, okay, it is in the best interest for the Mets to have some flexibility in their infield, that's what not only makes McNeil being traded what feels like a near certainty barring changes, and Okamoto a fantastic fit for this team who can play third base, first base, corner outfield if you need help there. Say, there's a one-off, Juan Soto doesn't want to play, he's at DH, or maybe Brendan Emo gets a little banged up. This is a guy that can be your plus defender in various avenues, various areas, and honestly can be an upgrade over Jeff McNeil, I think would be the best way to explain him, because he's not just someone that you would want to sign as your ultimate utility player. He's someone who's deserving to be in the lineup every single day. The consistent bat has shown that in his career in the MPB, as well as that plus defense. And then you add in his ability to actually handle fastballs, unlike Murakami, yet actually handle velocity above 93 miles per hour. That's a massive deal, okay? Because we know he's going to be seeing a lot of gas, and he may be a little bit of having an adjustment period when handling Major League pitching, no doubt. But there is a great expectation that Okamoto may very well be one of the best fits imaginable for the Mets to land this offseason out of every single free agent target. He's not going to cost you nearly as much as an Alex Bregman at third base, nor are you going to have as much of a logjam there. Yes, he isn't overly young at the age of 29, but if you're investing him on, say, a 2 to 4 year contract, that's certainly something that can be had here. Then you add in what it takes to land someone like Kazuma financially. And as we know, when it comes to MPB players, you have to pay a posting fee. Because the Giants are posting him for the first time ever, they're looking for a nice little pretty penny back. And that pretty penny will be the following. It will be 20% of the initial contract that the Mets or whoever has the luxury of signing Okamoto will ultimately have to give to the Giants. So think of a contract and add 20%, because that's a separate 20% basically that the Mets or whatever team would have to spend to give back to the Giants for making that happen. Then there's 20% of the first $25 million plus 17.5% of the next $25 million and 15% of the total if it's over $50 million if the contract is more than that exact amount. And obviously you can throw in more money that you would have to pay as this posting fee based on certain contract stipulations, bonuses, among other things, and this is per MLB.com in case you guys are unaware. So you're going to have to spend a decent amount of money, but he's not going to cost you nearly as much as Murakami, more than likely. He's going to be looking for a contract, imagine, in the 2 to 4 year range. I'm honestly getting similar vibes of kind of like a contract structure, at least lengthwise, of like a Ha-Seong Kim, but the difference is he has a lot more offensive upside than a Ha-Seong Kim. There is more comps that I've seen with Okamoto of a Seiya Suzuki than there has been a Ha-Seong Kim, who's more of a defensive juggernaut, but at bat that's very fickle. That we know during his time with the Padres, and then this past year with the Rays, and then even was with the Braves a little bit, and actually did not bat against our Mets, because of course he did. The point stands. Okamoto has a lot of things to be appealed about, and certainly for the Mets, if they're going to be going after any type of player this offseason, this has to be towards the top of the list of someone who actually makes an abundance of sense for them. Like, honestly, too much sense, if I'm being completely honest with you, because we've talked about Murakami, and we've said how Murakami would be awesome to add that power bat, batting from the left side in this lineup. No doubt about it. But at the same time, you would not only pigeonhole yourself as someone who's not going to be proficient defensively in any other area, making Mark Vientos potentially look like a Gold Glove at third base. I'm not even exaggerating all that much as I say that. Murakami's not a good defender. Doesn't matter that, we played 20% at first base this year and he played 50% at third base. Doesn't matter. He's not a good defender. And barring changes, until we see a team like the Dodgers or others sign him and develop him greatly as a defender, I will have to see to believe it. Okamoto separates himself just based on his defensive value alone. Then you add in the fact that, as I reiterate again, every single season since he started his MPB career, going back to his age 22, he has averaged at least 30 home runs a year. That's really impressive. The contact ability hasn't been anything lower than 252 in his 2022 season, and that was his lowest, mind you. On base ability, the lowest it's been is 343 going back to his age 23 season. Slugging, the lowest slugging he's ever had was 269 in that 2022 season at the age of 26. And he was still over 30% above league average that year, was a plus defender, was a Gold Glover there in the infield for them, and obviously has done great things with both the bat and the defense. So Okamoto, that is essentially what you're getting in him. You're getting a righty bat that can play first base, third base comfortably, and is someone that the Mets do not need to sign as solely an Alonso replacement. I hate the idea that I've seen some fans out there that have suggested that, Okamoto is the perfect replacement for Alonso. Until the Mets fully commit to parting ways with Pete Alonso, we should not be under the impression that, we're comfortable with Pete Alonso being part of it. Like, are we forgetting how much value Alonso brings to this organization on and off the field? Are we forgetting how clutch that man has been constantly when this team has needed it, including last year's postseason run? I mean, I'm not going to go on this complete tangent and sell you on Pete Alonso, because you all know very well how important and how vital he is to the organization. But what I will say is that if the Mets do allow Alonso to walk and they sign Okamoto, you understand now why that is to a degree. Because even if Okamoto's bat transitions to more of a, say, 20, 25 home run guy at the major league level with absolute best of touching 30, that defense and offensive balance is something that the Mets, and we will see in real time just how valuable that is. You guys will realize very quickly, wow, what it's like to actually have a proficient first baseman who's saving games for you at that position instead of costing you the way that Alonso did multiple times this past year with silly underhand tosses that were botched to first base, botched throws to home, just diving out. I love Alonso and I love the effort he puts in. It's never for lack thereof on that front, but he throws out his body more than any other first baseman in baseball. It concerns me with longevity for him, and if I'm being completely frank, I just want Alonso to finally say, hey, I'm willing to commit as more of a full-time DH, because then there is no argument, if we're being honest with you. How can you not want Alonso as your everyday DH in this lineup? Because that's exactly how he perfectly profiles. I know people are going to be stubborn and say, oh, I need Pete to be my first baseman. That's fine. That's well and good. But I'm telling you, there's a reality where Alonso is not this team's first baseman next year. And he'll go in direct hand with that stubbornness and either Pete's unwillingness to deviate away from the position right away to be more of a DH, 2, the ask and say not only AAV, but long-term ability, and 3, knowing that's about team fit. Defense and pitching cost this team mightily this past year. Obviously, the Jekyll and Hyde offense certainly played a part as well. But the point stands, if David Stearns is really adamant and he himself is stubborn on what he believes will be doing best for the organization to upgrade this team both offensively and defensively, because we know the offense is there. Should that be the case, the Mets are poised to have a very serious, a very big run in one Mr. Okamoto. So before we wrap this up, everybody, I just want to make sure my notes, I'm not missing anything in particular, as we talked about, the swing rates as well, how crazy the swing and miss issues are for Munetaka Murakami versus someone like him. Let me just give you an example. Over his career, Okamoto has had a just under 900 OPS and just over 1,000 MPB games. He also doesn't have the same swing and miss issues that plague Murakami, who has struck out a whopping 168 times or so in 3 separate seasons. We know Murakami's going to strike out at an absurd rate. Okamoto is the complete opposite in that regard. So I think I did a solid job in letting each and every one of you know what you need to know about Okamoto and his consistency, his level-headed success that he has had in the MPB to this point, and how much, and I understand it's easy to lump someone like him with that being in Munetaka Murakami, because they're both Japanese sluggers coming from the MPB, so you're naturally going to view them as the same, and you're naturally going to view them as locks in line with the LA Dodgers. I know this may be hard to fathom, but believe it or not, the LA Dodgers are not going to land every single MVP player this offseason. If they do, I will do a video on that and say how I was wrong and how they somehow made it work. There's going to be 3 to 4 at minimum players posted from Japan this year. It's not just Murakami. It's not just Okamoto. There's also a starting pitcher, potentially 2, that'll be posted. That'll also be enticing for the Mets. And that is where, depending on the future, Kodai Senga, the Mets may actually lean in a little bit on, should they have the pursuit of these starters. Because there's always good pitching coming from the MPB. We see this year after year for the most part. Kodai Senga wasn't a Cy Young and Rookie of the Year finalist in 2023 for no reason, right? We know how talented Kodai is. It just comes down to his injuries and honestly being a bit of a mental midget that he needs to get himself out of if he wants to stay in this organization. But we have seen this team have levels of success with MPP players before. I anticipate that they will again, and they need to work around the fact that the Dodgers are always going to be the hot commodity of a team of Japanese players to seek. If it's not the Yankees, if it's not the Seattle Mariners, which I'll be honest, how the Mariners really flex that much guns when it comes to Japanese players outside of Ichiro, they really haven't. So I don't think there's as much bias there as maybe people think, other than location, because obviously if you're living in Seattle, you have a closer possibility of getting there to, say, Japan based on that location than you would be if you were, say, in Flushing, Queens with the New York Mets. But outside of those aspects, the Mets need to be creative on how they approach players like this, because they know that they do not have the upper hand advantage like they typically would if they were, say, the LA Dodgers with Japanese players. Dodgers don't need to sell you as to why you should go there. The same way that the Yankees, they need to sell you a bit more now, but they don't need to do a crazy amount of selling because their history does the rest. For the Mets, it's about selling the future. It's about how they brought in Juan Soto. It's about how they brought in so many others, not just the big bucks, but to sell them on the vision for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that's what they have to do. And that's why the Mets' lack of success the first 5 years under Cohen has been a massive problem, because it's really hard to pitch and constantly sell to top free agents to come here beyond the dollars when you don't have the consistent success to back it. The Mets have only had one successful year under Steve Cohen. I do not count 2022 as a successful year. The way that that team flopped in the second half, from Marte's injury to Mitch Keller in Pittsburgh to the Braves sweep to being curb stomped by the Padres in the wild card. We only look at 2022 with a sour taste in our mouth, not one that we're happy about. 2024 is a different story, different discussion. That is the anomaly of the year under Cohen. But everything else has really been more the same of a Mets team that has not nearly met expectations. Can a guy like Okamoto be that difference maker to help actually the Mets on the defensive end, make a guy like Brett Baty and or Mark Vientos more feasible for a trade? Because I'm sorry, as much as I like Baty and Vientos, and I know you guys do too, everyone has a price in today's game. And I would be the first to say that if the Mets needed to trade one or both those guys in a blockbuster deal to land a quality starter to the degree of a Skubal, a Peralta, a Green, are we really losing sleep over it when you already have an immediate replacement that should be more proficient offensively and defensively than either of those two players that we've gotten for the most part? No, you're not. So while Baty, as of now, I firmly believe is a third baseman of the future for this team, should be our everyday third baseman starting next season, that all reaches a moot point should he be dealt in a greater deal while adding Okamoto to be your third base type. Now, if Okamoto's at first base because Alonso walked, I'm not going to be overly upset about adding him, as I will just be genuinely concerned as to there's a lot of uncertainty here still on what you're getting from him versus what you know is a guarantee of a lock every year in Alonso to hit at least 30 home runs, north of 100 to 130 RBIs, and it'd be important for you in pivotal games throughout the clutch to a degree. You don't know that yet with Okamoto. Not that he hasn't proven it overseas, but because he's done nothing at the major league level. That sliver of uncertainty concerns me most as a Mets fan, with allowing Alonso to be part of with more than anything else. So if you ask me, Wardy, do you have a stomach to part ways with Pete Alonso? I do, like any other player. Because if I'm being completely honest with you, I care far less about the individual player performances as I do about winning. I don't know what it's like to win as a Mets fan. I've never seen a championship in my lifetime personally. So while I love these guys, I will love it a lot more if they're parted with for the sake of making this team the best it can be to be a World Series champion. Even if that means that a Pete Alonso has to be parted with. Even if that means years down the line you trade away a Francisco Lindor. Even if that means you just do things that are unfathomable to the mind of us Mets fans right now. Because I care about winning. Winning first and foremost. And the Mets simply haven't done that in pretty much my entire lifetime as a Mets fan. I'm getting tired of it. Just like the decades-long Mets fans who have far more seasons than I do to look back on and say, yeah, we should have been a better team. That it would have been nice to root for an actually good playoff, deep, hungry team to get into not just postseason play, but to have a deep, hopefully, World Series run. So if Alonso's parted with, I will be more concerned on not me missing Alonso and potentially going to rival, because you think about those things. You hate the idea of Alonso thriving with a competitive team, especially if he would stay in the National League. That's a big no-no. You can't have that happen, right? Especially if it's in the division. Like if you won the Phillies, I would want to jump off a cliff, rightfully so. But the point stands. Are you more concerned about losing Alonso because of Alonso? Or are you more concerned about losing Alonso because you don't know how they're going to be able to supplement, replenish, and replace his production? I fall more in that latter half. I love Alonso, and I really do hope he returns to this Mets team. But I'm already under the mentality that he may very well not. And if he doesn't, we need to be prepared for how do we replace him. Okamoto helps in that category. Is he Pete Alonso? No. Is he better than Pete Alonso? Defensively, yes. Night and day. Offensively, no. Probably not. But is that enough, along with prioritizing more power at the DH position and prioritizing more great defense with the rest of your infield? I really want to know what you guys think in regards to how the Mets should go about their infield configuration this offseason. Are you for or against Okamoto? If you are, please let me know in the comments down below. Let me know ultimately, where do you see Munetaka Murakami, Okamoto, among others, landing this offseason that are coming from the MPB? Do you think that they're all locks to go to the Dodgers? Do you think that the Mets have a realistic chance the way that I firmly do in Okamoto, far more than Munetaka Murakami, barring changes, if I'm being honest? I mean, Murakami may come down to a lot of dollars, obviously, too. That's where the Mets can flex them. But Okamoto makes a lot more team sense for this club without having to really deviate away from what the David Stearns vision is. He checks off every single box in that regard, which is why I'm telling you, get ready and buckle up for the inevitable continued connections between the Mets and this player, and ultimately how the Giants, for the first time in their franchise's history in the MPB, have posted a player. There's good reason for it. He was their captain, as you guys see, the C on his chest, and he's someone who will hopefully do great things for a team like the New York Mets for 2026 and beyond. Thank you guys again for watching. I really appreciate it. Be on the lookout for more continued breakdowns on all things Mets all off season long here on the platform. Until then, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.